All right, now we're recording. Thank you for being here, and I am excited. I am Taylor at LGBTQ Allyship and excited to give a Power Up workers' rights information and education to those that want to watch. And then we do have one great participant here. So thank you for joining us today. I'm trying to share my screen so that you can see. I'm not finding, there it is. Share screen. All right, are you able to see that?
It's still loading on my end.
Okay,
There we go.
there you are. So thank you for being here, and let's get this show on the road. Normally I take about an hour, but because there's just the two of us, it probably won't take an hour. I just want to give you some background information, and please interrupt me anytime that you want, because yeah, it's no fun to just be lectured at. Hold on one second. I thought I had my other, yeah, this needs to come over here. There we are. So first thing is, why is it important to know that LGBTQ people, workers, why it's important for them to know their rights? The main reason is 21% of LGBTQIA employees have reported that they've been discriminated against during the hiring process, promotions, and during pay. It's challenging. Hiring process is challenging, and BIPOC and LGBTQ folks in Seattle report also that they live paycheck by paycheck. And we know that Washington State is a state that prohibits unfair employment practices against people by classification. And so the fact that people are having these challenges, it's important to know what your rights are, what employee rights you have, so that if you feel that they have been violated, you can take action. Next. So protected classes, I just want people to know that Washington State has a lot of protected classes, but Seattle has even more. And there's, I want to emphasize that there are more protected classes in Seattle. We're pretty robust, but Washington State has a good portion of these around race, creed, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, including gender identity, age, the use of service animals or disabilities in Washington, marital status, parental status in Washington, and veterans. National origin also, but HIV, AIDS, and hepatitis C, I believe, are city. And yeah, there's a few more too. And that brings up around fair chance ordinance. This is one of city Seattle laws that were passed. And this was to regulate the use of criminal history in an employment decision. So no longer are jobs allowed to advertise to put an advertisement that excludes conviction or arrest records. It also prohibits background checks and criminal history until after the employer has gone through the initial screening So it can't be on the application. That they can't ask you if you've committed any kind of crime or been prosecuted for a crime on your resume. They can ask you after they've gone through all of the initial interview process and stuff, and especially they can ask around if it's related to the work. So say you are going to be a banker and you have theft as an employee criminal history, they can ask you that. And same with sexual crimes, if you're going to be a teacher or something. So those can be asked later, but they cannot be asked up front. And then it requires employees to have a legitimate business reason to deny a job based on the conviction record. So like I said, if you have theft, that might be a reason, but it requires also an opportunity for an applicant or an employee to explain or correct the criminal history information. So say I have theft, but it was when I was young and now I'm older and it was a CD and not, trying to scam out and write forgery checks or something like that. So that is one law. The next law that I want to speak about, do you have any questions around that? First of all,
Oh, was that just for the city of Seattle or is that for the state?
that is the city of Seattle.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Most of our laws do cover the city of Seattle, and I do cover a little bit around Washington on minimum wage, but most of these are around city of Seattle laws. So minimum wage, speaking of, so in Washington state, currently the minimum wage is $14.49. SeaTac is a little bit, well, quite a bit more. Their minimum wage is $17.53. I did do research across the Washington state. The minimum wage in all of the other areas other than SeaTac and Seattle are $14.49. And then in Seattle, makes it a little bit different. There's this interesting way of looking at it. It's not very complicated. The way it's worded can seem complicated, but if you work for an organization in a large, and they're a large employee, so they have to have 501 or more employees, for example, Starbucks or Amazon or can't think of the restaurant's name right now. Any of those larger organizations, they are required to give you $17.27 an hour. If you work for a small organization, and that means 500 or fewer employees, and they pay $1.52 an hour towards medical benefits, or they give you medical benefits, or you earn medical or earn tips, then they pay you $15.75. If they don't give you tips and they don't give you medical benefits or either or, then they require to pay you $17.27. So no matter what, you end up getting $17.27 in the end, but there's a different way that it'll be showing up on your paycheck. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great. Next is the paid sick and safe time. And this is specifically paid sick and safe time in Seattle. So paid sick and safe time allows you to have, it's also known as PTO, personal time off. So I will be using acronyms of PSST or PTO if I don't say them out. When you get hired, you start on your first hour that you clock in. The moment you start clocking in, you're accumulating your paid sick and safe time. It doesn't matter if you're a full-time person, a part-time person, temporary or seasonal, you receive paid sick and safe time. And now that I say that, I believe that I need to look it up, and I believe this is Washington State. When you get 40 hours, so every 40 hours that you work, whether that is full-time 40 hours or part-time, you get 40 hours in 2 weeks or something like that, you'll receive 1 hour of paid sick and safe time, unless you're told otherwise. There are some organizations and companies that pay you more paid sick and safe time for less hours, say like 30 hours. They may still pay you 1 hour for 30 hours. You may not be able to access that paid sick and safe, pardon me, the PSST until 90 days. So even though you're accumulating it, you may have to wait for 90 days to be able to use it for time off. What you can use it for, though, is taking care of yourself. So you get sick, or a family member gets sick, a child gets sick, you need to go to a doctor's appointment, a dental appointment, a mental health appointment. Those are all covered by your paid sick and safe time. Say that you have experienced, you or a housemate have experienced violence or sexual assault, and you may need to help them, or you may need to take some time off for yourself. That is covered by paid sick and safe time. You helping your housemate, whether that is a partner or an actual housemate that you're not involved with in a sexual relationship, you still get to use your paid sick and safe time. You do not have to inform your employer about your paid, what you're taking time off of, but you do need to inform them that you're taking the time off. And after 3 consecutive days of having time off, if you have not informed your employer, then they do have the ability to question and let you go. But if you let them know that you're sick or you've been sick, you don't need to do anything else. And how do you find your paid sick and safe time? It should be on your pay stub. If it's not on your pay stub, you should be able to find it on your pay stub. It should say PTO or something like that. How much you've accumulated, how much you've used, and how much is left. So what you've accumulated from the pay time. So say you get paid for every other week, it should tell you how much you earned in those 2 weeks. And then it should tell you after that how much you've used, if you used any that week and those 2 weeks. And then it should say the total amount that you still have. If they don't put it on your paycheck, they should provide you access to it and or a printed copy somewhere. If you don't get that, that is liable for a possibility of wage theft. So you want to make sure that you're being accounted for that. And that leads us to wage theft. Did you have any questions before I moved on? All right. So wage theft is not being paid, basically. Wage theft is when you're not being paid the minimum wage, at least, that you're not receiving your tips or overtime or the amount that you were promised. So if you applied for a job and they said that they were going to pay you $18 an hour and you're getting paid minimum wage at 17, what did I say, 27.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Taylor.
Thank you. I am going back to what we were talking about. I don't know where it left off, so I will just try my best. Do you know the last thing I said?
You had just started explaining wage theft before it cut out on my end.
Okay, so thank you for that. My internet disappeared. So wage theft is not being paid minimum wage, tips, overtime, or the amount promised. And the amount promised, such as if you have $18, if you were told $18 when you got hired, you should receive $18. If you're receiving $17.53, which is the minimum wage, but you were told 18, that's wage theft. Not being paid for the time that you worked, not being reimbursed for covered expenses. Some people don't even need to bother with that, but if you had to go buy stamps or something for a business and you didn't get paid back. Also, not being paid for your rest breaks. So if you're working in a restaurant, I hear often people saying, I don't get a rest break. And you're supposed to get a rest break. There are some cases where you've negotiated, but if you've negotiated, that means that you should get off earlier. So some people have told me, yeah, I negotiated and I don't take a lunch. Well, then you should be taking that time off. You get off earlier, and that's how you're being paid for that. If you are asked to take out the trash at the end of the night, but you've already clocked off and it takes you 15 to 20 minutes, you just got wage theft. That's not being paid for your time. So you need to clock back on and then take the garbage out and then clock back off. Being misclassified as an independent contractor in order to get out of paying for insurance, that's been talked about before. Not getting holiday or sick pay. It does provide the Seattle's wage theft ordinance does provide protections against wage theft by establishing basic requirements for payment of wage tips within the Seattle limits. So they do require that all wages tips that is owed to employees provide written notice to employees and itemize pay information for the employees who are being paid. Next, we've got filing a complaint and why it's important. So this is really the important part. So we know the laws. We've got 3 laws that we know. There's 18 laws in Seattle around worker rights. And out of those 18 laws, these 2, fair chance employment, which was the first one we spoke about, and wage theft, have been in 2021 noted. There was other ones too, but the fair chance employment, 2 workers were affected, and that between the 2 of them, they got $1,000 and 13. That doesn't sound like much, but they also got their dignity. With wage theft, the affected amount of workers was 468 last year. And out of that, there's the amount. I'm not reading that amount because I'm really bad at doing that. But you've got this amount, excessive amount of return money to just the employees. There's another portion that gets returned to the investigation. So this is just to the employees being paid back. None of this money goes to anywhere else but back to the employees. To file a complaint, you go to the Seattle Office Labor Standards if you feel that your rights have been violated. If you're worried about giving them your name, you can let them know you want to be anonymous. You don't have to let them take your name. You need to tell them ahead of time. You do have to kind of give some information, but they will subtract that information from the actual complaint file. You can call them, you can email them, you can go in person now, their office is open. You can do it online. If you feel that your rights have been violated, the first line of defense is writing down and documenting anything that happened. You want a record of that information. You want to list out by date what has happened. Say you were told to do, like I said, take out the trash. Write that down, that your employer wouldn't allow you to clock back in, or waited until you clocked off to make you take out the trash. You can write that down. Didn't receive your breaks. What day, what time, what shift were you working? And this is all information that they can use. You want to have accurate, say you're being misclassified or you were promised a certain amount. Make sure you have that letter of employment and then your paycheck. There's your proof that that's happening, that wage theft is happening. You want to figure out, that's for wage theft. There's other ways to record information that is, you want to make sure that you're recording and writing down whatever law is being broken. And then reporting that, that you'll be assigned to a case manager. They'll review the information and then contact you for the next steps. And sometimes that step is just getting more qualified information. And then if you're being anonymous, they go to the employer and they do an investigation. If you don't report wage theft or you don't report a grievance, you're not doing yourself justice or others. So this is a real way of empowering your work and the accountability of your employer. So I can't explain or express hard enough how important it is to file a complaint. And if the complaint is not valid, they will figure that out. But most of the time we don't complain if it's not valid. So please report if you feel that your rights have been violated. You can also contact me at LGBTQ Allyship and have a conversation around whether or not something you feel has been violated. We can work that out and talk about it and then direct you to the right location. Do you have any questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. I do appreciate you being here. And I want to say, and this is for you and for anybody that watches our video, LGBTQ is taking the pledge for the US Trans Survey. We're asking people to please visit their website if you are LGBTQ, trans, non-binary specifically, and you are 16 or older, you can take the survey. You can go on to their website, transequality.org, and pledge that you will take the survey. This is the best way to get data about the community. I am non-binary. I am pledging to take this survey. They ask a bunch of questions like the census does. They account for our who we are and make sure that we are being counted, unlike the census. So please take a moment to consider taking the pledge. They only do it once every 10 years. And last time, there was a lot of great information that came out of it. So I encourage taking that. It's happening this summer. So I have not seen email come to me. So please go ahead and go on their website. When you sign on, they will send you an email to ask you to take the survey. And that's it. We are LGBTQ Allyship. We are an advocacy organization that fights for LGBTQ housing and economic justice and rights. So if you have any other questions or thoughts, feel free to ask.
Thank you so much. That was really, really helpful and really informational. I live in Yakima, but that was still a lot of great information.
Yeah, and I can send you some additional information for the Yakima area if you need. And I know that you work with your organization and your community. If there's ever a question though, feel free to have people reach out to us because we do work across the state. This particular workshop is more for Seattle area. And then I do have laws around other parts of Washington too. So
Thank you. That's great to know. I definitely will give folks that information so they have that resource.
great.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank